So I would say pretty much our normal routine. We have a few guys dealing with the flu bug, more so this week than I can recall. So some of them will be listed as questionable because, hopefully they'll be able to go. And then, so a little bit more on the injury report, I would say, this week than most. That being said, I thought we had a good week of practice. Any questions?
You or from the front office, do you have a conversation with Russell about being benched for that position as contract?
No, listen, and I understand the question, and it's fair, and I totally get it. I'm not privy to any of those. That's not. I'm handling the football, and I know this. The number one reason for taking this job for me was ownership and winning. Certainly the tradition here mattered relative to being at a place where it's important, but that's something George in the front office. I'm not involved in any of that. I mean, certainly I'm involved in a lot, but and there'll be a time and place at the end of the season where maybe some of the questions that you might have, someone else will be able to answer. My focus has been on winning, and I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning of the week. And I know how this has been written, but this decision strictly what I believe gives us a chance to win number 8. And now it's a hard decision, but there's no other, for me, where I'm at in my career, that's all I'm interested in, is getting another win. There's no other, would be no other reasons. And Russ has had a great week. He's handled it well professionally, but I just know how Greg and Kerry and the ownership group want to handle, and this is a place that's special, and we only get to be here for a while, but our job is to make sure that we carry that torch. So the focus for me this week has been our team, and I think sometimes that's part of being a head coach. So I'm going to leave it at that, and again, I appreciate and certainly understand the need for information.
Sean, you mentioned earlier in the season having a vision for the team for this year and next year. Do you think this decision might impact your vision for this year?
And look, we haven't sat down and met. What I'm used to doing and what we'll do when the season ends is there'll be 5 or 6 days of being away from it because experience has told me. And then, we do this whole process of the whole roster, and we have a series of numbers and grades that I've learned early in my career, and we go through every player, starting with the trainers, the strength, position coach, the coordinators, pro personnel, GM, head coach, and we'll do that, but we haven't begun at all to decide not just Russ, but any other player. In other words, the week's too short. Certainly it's too short for me relative to what I'm doing. And putting the practice plans together with our staff, all of that. Our players have been great. And, the last thing I just finished with is, when we met at the start of the season, we talked about, the direction you need to head if we want to have success. And it's not easy. Someone dropped you here in the middle of Colorado, and you turned and looked around, you see the mountains, you probably either go south, north, or east, and yet the direction really has to be, towards the mountains. And there's going to be pitfalls, there's going to be disappointment, there's going to be heartbreak, but in order to get there and get to the top, that's the direction we have to head. And we've dealt with all of that, and you typically will. Pick a team this year. Just pick one, and I'll show you a 2-week stretch. Now, some maybe less than others, but you can find it, and it's our game. So the leadership's been good, and they've handled it well. And look, getting to this 8th win's important. And then next week at this time, that next one will be just as important.
With Jared, when you have a guy who doesn't play the last snaps recently, are there things you can do philosophically to kind of get him back
Yeah, I mean, like with Russ, the same way where you do a whole study on him. What are the things that you see him excel in throws, and what are the things that what are his strengths, and then you kind of build this whole look. And I know I had a stretch with Drew, but yet, man, there was 5 weeks with Teddy, where, well, it wasn't the same type of plan. And, fortunately, we won 5-0 with him. And then we had a stretch with Taysom, and it was different, completely different from either of those two. And then, Trevor Simeon, and then Jameis till he got his AC. So part of that is the same way with Stiddy. What are these things that we feel like are his strengths? And certainly what are the things maybe that, and then build the plan, but also around the strengths of the receivers, that kind of thing. So, but the language, the terminology is just, Apple or Mac, or it's just the program you're on, how you call it.
Coach Sean, how has he looked when he started this week at camp?
He's had a good week. Look, so when you're the 2, you take all the scout team reps, and you could see it. He's going against he's running carded plays, but when you start looking at the schemes in our league, there are a lot of, you'd say this is just like, and I think we're pretty deep at receiver with some of the guys we have on the practice squad, and there's a chance 1 or 2 of them might come up for this game. But I think he was sharp this week.
Sean,
Who are you going to list as out injury-wise?
Look, it's coming out in it.
But then you can comment on it.
Patrick, how far are we from listing that?
Half hour.
Half hour. I would say this: Cortland will be out, and then Browning, I think we listed as out, and then we'll stop it there. That's all good.
What are your thoughts?
But there's some other.
You could be a bit thin in receiver. I saw Mims was on the.
Yeah, listen. The one thing that I'm excited about, if some of these scenarios, man, and you guys see some of practice, but when you're looking at, Sills and you're looking at Dorsett, you're looking at Bandy and Traquan, we're deep here with some guys that have played a lot, and there's some similarities. Like if you told me this player was possibly out, then I'd say this would be the easy in 1-for-1. If you told me this play, and so fortunately we kind of have those types, if you will, but those guys have had, all season long worked their tail off, and then all of a sudden there's 1 week where maybe one or more than one get a chance.
You've been around this game a long time. I'm sure you've seen teams that at this point in the season were playing for something and teams that were just playing it out. What's your sense of this group and how they'll respond?
Well, listen, we're playing for something. And you remember when I used that analogy, and I'm just, again, referencing a team. I know the coach well, and I referenced, the 1-6 Lions, and they flipped the script. And then, the final week of the season, they're trying to get their 9th win. And an hour before kickoff, they get eliminated before the Packer game. They're eliminated from the postseason. And they went out, won that game, finished 9-8. Now, do you think that mattered? It mattered a lot. And these games matter a lot. And especially as you're building and like we are. But this game is the one, to get to 9, you got to get to 8 first. So I think it matters a lot. And I think they understand that.
John, you had talked to us about how Lucas was coming along. You guys like what you're seeing. Then
Yeah.
for him to have that performance on Sunday, what did you like, and where do you think?
Well, he's long and he's tall, and so you get a high point catch in the end. You get some of those plays. He's real smart. So there's some versatility there, and look, early in the year we had Nate, they're different type players. And so each week we ask the question, is it Nate or Luke? And so, but I've been pleased. And I think we get to see more of him than everyone else. And so, it was based on what we were seeing. And even in those practice snaps where he's going against the D, you see the skill set.
You alluded to what Jarrett's done on the practice field. Like, what are the things that he's doing better now than when you first got a hold of him back in May?
Well, I would say this. Let's go through the whole process. The last 2 games of the season for him were significant in that you see preseason. I remember grading him coming out, transfer, Auburn, New England. Josh takes him to Vegas, and then he plays against the 49ers, one of the better defenses in our league. And they go into overtime, and that's impressive tape. And then the following week, Kansas City. And so as everyone is, but we're in the quarterback business always. Like, where do you find them? And we felt like this guy has a lot of traits that you're looking for. I'd say the thing that he does very well for his size, he's got very good feet. It's fluid in the pocket. I think he processes well. And so you try to do as much homework as you can, and then you have a visit, and I think he's got a presence about him. So I would say, to answer your question, really it's getting acclimated to new terminology, different than what was in New England or Vegas, because that was probably the same. And all of that has been smooth.
What do you got to do to get the running game going to help State?
Good question. I got to do a better job in being patient, calling it. I think this is a team. It's interesting. There's some heavy fronts when you get into short yardage and goal line. They're a real good short yardage defense. So they load the box. They give you some tough looks. And I think we have to be somewhat multiple. But we're familiar with this team maybe a little bit more than most because they're very similar in the schemes. It's and I'm not going to say the same group, but Vic and the breakoffs, and we're a similar defense to some degree. And so our last period, we just went against each other in practice. So I think that part of it is deciding, what you want to be in when you run it. You want to be in nickel looks where you can get certain fronts, or you want to be in heavy looks. So part of it's that too.
Coach, I asked because you lived in the media for a year. When this decision was made with Russell, obviously it's a big deal. You get personally criticized. How do you deal with that? Is that part of?
I think it's part of the deal, and I understand it. And look, yeah, I get it. But it's the only thing that makes me once in a while want to do Hard Knocks, because there's a perception, and then that would be the only reason to get an insight as to this whole old school approach. Shoot, you don't do this long if you're not adjusting, funny, creative, all of those things, and I think I am all of those things.
Sean, do you still expect that Russell will be up and number 2 on Sunday?
No, that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
I told you that, and I'm in charge of it. He's going to be the number 2. Yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah, I got it. Fair question. All right. Anything else?
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Coach.